Good morning, Dreamhouse Nation. James Lewis of TDH. Joining us today is the biggest name in comedy, Costaki Economopoulos. Costaki, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're always excited to have you on this show. And we are also excited about your three big performances, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, because we have listeners in Columbus and Cincinnati, Ohio. So definitely they're going to take advantage of the opportunity to see you hopefully multiple times. We got Thursday, March 2nd, Columbus, Ohio. Don't tell Columbus. Why should we not tell Columbus?
It's actually the shtick of the show is that they don't know who the comics are. So we're not supposed to talk about it on the air. May or may not be in Columbus that night, Ohio. If you're in that part of the world, look around. It might be me. Might not be me. But the other two we're supposed to promote. They're definitely shows that I will absolutely be on, and I'll do more than an hour on each one of those.
Oh, awesome.
And those are the Cincinnati area.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got the one Friday, March 3rd, Mason, Ohio, the Saunders Brewing, and then, of course, Saturday, March 4th, Cincinnati, Ohio, Bombs Away Comedy. So you got a lot of great stuff going on that weekend.
Oh, it's awesome. I'm also doing I've never done this before. I'm doing a public appearance at a poker room. I'm doing Ruggles Social Club around midnight on Friday night after the show. I'm going to go play cards for about 3 hours. So if anybody, any poker nerds out there, come sit with me, play cards.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of fun. So it sounds like there's a lot of great opportunities to interact and do some neat things and hear some great comedy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just got off the road I did 3 nights, 4 shows. It was just it was a microcosm of my whole career. It was like a tiny little event sort of place, a beautiful theater, and then a brewery. And, we sold one out. We sold a bunch of tickets to the other ones. I got a standing ovation one night. One night I played poker. One night I drank beer. I drove all over the place in a big pickup truck I did one of these mystery car things with the rental place. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where you don't commit to the car, you just take whatever they get.
Exactly. And kind of a roulette. Where just, hey, it's a surprise.
Yeah. Usually I just get the same little Hyundai or Toyota I would have picked anyway. But this time they gave me a huge Ram truck, Hemi 1500. It's a ridiculous, huge, beautiful vehicle. And I was just driving that all over the place by myself. So it was a grand adventure, and I'm looking forward to getting back out on the road. I love Cincinnati. I've been there in years, so it'll be really nice to get to that part of the world.
It sounds like you're going to have a crazy busy weekend. I was originally going to invite you to the Arnold Sports Festival, March 3rd through 5th. It is a crazy event. You talk about big and outrageous. This thing is like the Olympics, but on steroids. Not that they admit to the steroids.
Wait, what is it? Tell me about this event.
Oh, Arnold Sports Fest. It is crazy good. It is like 60 or 80 different sports. It's bodybuilding, weightlifting, pole dancing. I mean, they got they have over 2,000 athletes. So they have about as many athletes as the Olympics does. And it's a 3-day event. It's up in Columbus, Ohio. It's one of those things that you should experience some point, even if you don't make it this year. I just was saying you should go because you're already going to be in Columbus and Cincinnati, and it's real close. But yeah, Schwarzenegger, the governor / actor, he put on this sporting event for over 30 years now, and it's grown and grown every year. And oh my gosh, just walking around and looking at the people that aren't the big bodybuilders is just so entertaining, because the people that aren't the superstars are still just so huge. They look like the She-Hulk and the Hulk.
That's so interesting. I'm completely oblivious to this event. That's cool.
Oh yeah, it's worth the Google.
In the world that sometimes they fly under your radar, but that doesn't mean they're not compelling as hell. That's cool.
And then of course you're going to be at the Sonder Brewing. So what's your favorite type of beer at Sonder Brewing?
Oh, I lost you for a sec. What'd you say?
Oh, I was asking about your favorite type of beer, because you're going to be at Sonder Brewing.
Oh, man. If I'm picking, my current favorite is like a I like these really high octane beers. Is my current groove. I love like a stout that's aged in bourbon barrels. Something like that. I like a really hearty, filled with life kind of super strong dark beer. But I actually, except for sours, I don't really love sours. But pretty much anything across the beer spectrum. I like reds. I like wheat beers. I like a good lager. I like light beers. I like fruity beers. There's Mango Card out here in LA that's kind of a go-to for me when I want a light beer. I'm a beer fan. I mean, I drank it in college a lot, and now that I'm a grown up, I drink a lot less, but I'm drinking much better beer. So
nice.
I enjoy it when I can sit and drink some beer.
So it sounds like you're not picky, in other words.
Well, I like variety. If I'm at a brewery, I'll get whatever the smallest beer is, and I'll have like 9 different kinds. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I prefer that.
We got a really neat place down in Newport, Kentucky, which is right across the river from Cincinnati, Ohio. The Hoffer House. It's definitely worth checking out. They make their beer fresh down there.
That sounds good.
Oh, yeah, it's a really neat place. It's, the Funny Bone used to be right across the street from it. They moved to a different place, but it had been across the street, and it made it so much nicer because people would go there, perform, and then go to the Hoffer House right afterwards and just have an awesome evening.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So what is Bombs Away Comedy?
It's a little collective of comics and producers that put on shows. I did some stuff with them. The last time I was in town, I with them, and we did a different place. They've moved on from there, but we did a little brewery that had food trucks outside, and it was awesome.
Nice.
So I trust them. It's Wayne Mamott. He was also a good comic, and he produces and puts together shows in the area. So it's nice when something's booked by a comic because they care about the things that a comic cares about. They know that you want good sound and the layout and some of the details that are kind of finer points to the craft of comedy. A comic gets it, when they're building a show. So I love working with comics when I can.
On any of those shows, are you having like an opening act or a headliner or any of that kind of fun stuff?
Yeah, in all 3 cases on those shows, I'm the headliner, and there'll be other supporting acts on the show. It might even be Wayne and a couple of his buddies, and kind of the local comics usually do short sets on these kind of shows. I'm not sure exactly how it falls out on this run, but in the past working with Wayne, I mean, he's a good comic, and he's got good taste. So the comics who were on the show the last time I came through were really good. It's nice to see some local acts and give them a chance to get some stage time. And I love supporting the local comics. Are sort of the backbone of the comedy industry.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's a nice thing about comedy where, established folks like yourself can help get the names out there of the young folks.
Right. Yeah. We know this about bands. There'll be a big shot band that takes along some upstart band that they love, and it helps them kind of get some grounding in the world. The same works with comedy. It's nice if I can, my medium light, if I can reflect some of that onto the next guys coming up, I'm all for that.
You don't give yourself enough credit. I was going to say you deserve better, but yeah, we had the same situation recently where we have Bret Michaels on the show from time to time, and then he had this new band called Classless Act as part of his thing last year, and oh my gosh, they're taking off, and it's just so nice to see the young folks be able to grow their own brand.
Yeah, that's cool. That's nice. It's funny. Is it because Brett's like he's still such a big star, but he's from a different era, right? Mm-hmm. Is the demo that comes to see Brett open to new young music too?
Some of them are, some of them aren't. It's about 50-50. I was going to say you got some of them that are like, hey, I only like, Poison and Def Leppard and Motley Crue. But then some of the other ones who, saw Classless Act were like, hey, they're really nice. They're really good mix. And it kind of opened their eyes a little bit.
That's cool.
So, of course, we got to talk about the all-pro lines. Now, is it just year-round or is it just NFL season?
Well, it is a fully revving machine for about 6 months a year. NFL season, it's pretty much every day, and on the weekends, I'm posting jokes like crazy, and we're doing interactive stuff and memes and caption contests, and it's a pretty active thing for about half of the year. And then I downshift, and then the other half of the year, I'm doing, we do content, but it's much less. And then we'll hit the peak moments. They'll be, right around the corner. We're going to find out where Derek Carr is going to play, and there's going to be several giant, names moving around and changing jerseys in mid-March. So usually there's a burst of activity then. And then, of course, the draft is not too far behind that. The NFL has a lot of sort of tentpole moments in the course of the year that aren't just the season. And then, of course, there's at any given moment, Antonio Brown pulls his junk out at the pool. But, whatever is going to happen, we can't predict. And I will jump back in and write jokes about whatever these things are. So, yeah, come join us on all your favorite social media platforms at All Pro Lines. It's basically just it's a football joke brand. And there's some interaction too, but you're certainly not obligated to interact. You can just passively enjoy some football comedy in your feed. It's nice.
Hey, speaking of football joke brands, they just had week 1, the XFL.
What'd you think?
It was okay. I mean, shoot, I'll watch anything that's football. So, I mean, yeah, it wasn't world beater, but it wasn't awful. I mean,
I didn't see it this time. Now, I've been interested at some level in the past because I think to give them some credit, they did embrace some nutty twists, right?
Yeah.
Are they doing that this year? They have a 3-point conversion. Are they doing that kind of thing?
Not that I'm aware of, but I'm sure they have something. I just watched some of the highlights, and they were making good plays, and they were making good tackles. I mean, as long as it's got that, I mean, I'm an arena football fan. That's how I got my start. So, yeah, anything that's technically football, I'll watch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a football fan too, but I have to admit, I didn't even know this was happening. I forgot about it. I was in a bar and I saw some multicolored helmet, and I kind of glanced by it. I just assumed it was like an old college game that was being replayed. I didn't even, until somebody pointed it out to me. I'm like, oh, it is the XFL. Here's my advice. If you're going to run a second tier football league, you're never going to be the best football, right? We have that league. Be something different. One thing I liked about one of the leagues last time around, they were interviewing players as they ran off the field. They're literally just made a sack and they're out of breath. That to me was refreshing and different. They had cameras inside the helmets. They had a couple of these weird kickoff rules and a 3-point conversion. And I think that's what sets you apart if you can do something like that. And I would also, if I was king for a day and running one of these kind of leagues, I would book all the names we know who are the weirdos who have sort of phased out of top-level football. I would get Chad Ochocinco and Johnny Manziel and Tim Tebow and Ray Rice. For me, it's the island of misfit toys. I don't even care if it's fantastic football. I want to see these characters play. Terrell Owens is available. Go get him. It'd be fun to see what he does.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I was going to say, and he's still in great shape. So, I mean, he could do it.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
So,
and, it would be fun to see him up against a 22-year-old defensive back. Like, who wins that? That's an interesting storyline to me that's not going to be peak A++ football, but it is it's fascinating football, and it's with names we know, right?
Exactly.
I want to see Cardell Jones. I want to see some of the names that we know from college who never made it at the highest levels, but they're still good players. They're interesting storylines. That's what I would embrace if I were running these kind of shows, you know?
So go more ABA, go more show than go instead of focusing on just the football, focus more on the entertainment aspect.
Yeah, because you can't be the best football league. That's already been taken. So
might not even be able to
different.
be the second best because of Canadian football is pretty good.
Yeah, right. Right. That's a fair point. So straight football is covered. Give me something different. Do something weird. You know, bring in some of these weird names that we remember, that we know. You know, that to me is a more interesting storyline. Some of the big college stars that didn't make it in the NFL. I want to see those guys play. I remember those names. I remember their story arcs from before. There's already some sort of casual interest, and I'm not even the target audience, but that's the kind of thing that would draw me in.
So with all the conspiracy theories out there, is the NFL just like professional wrestling where it's scripted, or is it something else?
It is hard to believe that this is a legitimate question at this point. I don't think it's scripted. No. I don't think they can cover it up for all these years. Nor do I think they would go 25 years without having the Cowboys win a Super Bowl if they were scripting it. If you were scripting it this year, the Buffalo Bills would have won, right? That's what we all wanted to see, especially after the Hamlin story, right?
Exactly. I agree with you. That would have made more sense. I was going to say just the tragedy that he had to deal with and to see them overcome would have been a much better story.
And those of us who are like, once our teams are out of it, of course you root for the Bills to win. They're fun. They're interesting. Josh Allen is a superstar. They haven't won. And, you know, everyone is kind of rooting for the Bills, right? Mm-hmm. If you were scripting it, you would pick that, right?
Exactly.
I don't know.
People are crazy, so I just wanted to throw that one out there because I wanted to use the phrase just like professional wrestling is the only reason why I asked that question, because I love professional wrestling. I know it is scripted, but it's fun. So, you know.
It has been funny to see some of the NFL players, like tongue-in-cheek, talk about it being scripted. I don't know if you saw the clip of Ryan Leaf talking about how his script was that he was going to fake a drug problem and wind up in jail.
Oh wow!
And he was in jail for years, and he hated the script, but he hung in there because it made him rich. You know, it's hilarious.
Dedicated actor, right? That's why.
Ryan Leaf, by the way, is a cool dude.
Oh, he is cool.
Follow Ryan Leaf. He's thoughtful. He's kind. He's a human being who's owned his flaws. He's sober, and he's turned into a pretty impressive character. So he was a joke for years, but he's a pretty cool, thoughtful, you know, grown-up human being now. It's pretty neat.
Speaking of fun, you had a lot of fun. You got to hang out on Radio Row, Super Bowl week. Tim Brown, Ron Jaworski, Frank Caliendo, Sam Kinison, all kinds of neat folks were there. Obviously, I know it wasn't really Sam, but
that's funny. Yeah, Craig Gass does a spooky good Sam Kinison. It was fun. It's football nerd heaven to just, you know, Frank Caliendo is busting my balls, and then 10 feet in front of us during the interview, Joe Montana and Christian McCaffrey stopped to chat to each other. You know, just to be in we talked to Tony Dungy, and we ran around and grabbed a bunch of stars and had them read jokes to us. And it was just to write jokes about these guys and to follow them on my fantasy teams and to be in the mix, to just like wind up peeing next to them, you know, at the urinal and waiting for a sandwich and kind of passing each other on the way to different interviews, just to kind of be in the mix with some of these like football legends. It was so cool, man. I loved it. It's such it's like fantasy dork camp. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Exactly. Yeah, I was going to say, being able to be in those type of atmospheres and that type of class of folks, it definitely is one of those memorable moments in your life.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. And then, did you love that Lovie Smith went for 2?
I didn't see that. What happened?
So apparently at the end of the season, like the last game, he went for 2 so the Texans would win. But I understand that
that's right.
That caused them to lose a spot.
They fired him like within hours of that game, right? They didn't even wait till the next day. Oh, it's funny. Well, the coach is going to try to win. You can't expect him not to. Good for him.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Yeah. I mean, did they want him to?
It screws up the draft. The draft order. Hilarious.
Exactly. Plus, they were probably going to fire him any dang way. So you did the right thing.
That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, it changes things. And now it's Chicago's first now, right?
Mm-hmm. Which is funny because that's his old team.
Yeah, that's right. So presumably they're going to trade out of that spot to someone who wants a quarterback.
That would make sense. Falcons, yeah, I mean they might as well get as many
Panthers,
draft picks. Yeah.
Somebody. Yeah, right. That's what I would do. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. And speaking about
just sit there and take that big old boy from Georgia.
Oh right? Yeah, he's quite impressive. They're saying your guys are going to take a big old boy as well. They're saying Miles Murphy from Clemson.
I've seen that. I also saw. I've seen quarterbacks fall to them too in mock drafts. Plan A for me is to get Lamar Jackson.
I agree. Right? I think that's the way to go.
Because it feels like he's disgruntled where he is. The Falcons almost signed Deshaun Watson. They have a history of, the sort of mobile quarterback. It's a very high percentage of the fan base is African American, right? They succeeded with Michael Vick despite having nothing around him for a few years there, right? They love the idea of the face of their franchise being a compelling black guy, right? I would love to have Lamar.
Yeah, Lamar is an awesome quarterback. Seems like a great leader. I mean, seems like the type of person you'd want to run a franchise. So, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, if they could reach out and get him, and then he could mentor Desmond Ridder, and then, just, have a lot of success for the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Falcons I think they're number 2, if I'm not mistaken, on the list of teams with a lot of cap space. They spent all their money this year. They got all the money off the books from Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. So now they're clear and free, and they're willing to pony up some serious money if they were going to almost sign Deshaun Watson. So why not take Lamar, who's disgruntled because he didn't get Deshaun Watson money in Baltimore?
Exactly. So it sounds like there's a lot of great stuff going on with the NFL. There's a lot of great comedy going on in Columbus and Cincinnati and Mason, Ohio. So just sounds like it's going to be an excellent weekend.
It's going to be great. Thanks for helping me get the word out, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Before we let you go, where's the website and social media?
Oh, it's Costaki.com. It's sort of ground zero of all of it. You can find links to everything there, just 7 letters, Costaki. Or you can put those same, 7 letters into any of your social media platforms and find me on Twitter and Instagram and even TikTok if you're up for that sort of thing. Facebook, and also at All Pro Lines. So you can find Costaki or at All Pro Lines. I keep them separate. I'm doing almost all the football content over at All Pro Lines and lots of stand-up clips and videos and clips from the Super Bowl over at the Costaki pages. So come find me out there, folks. So
excellent.
I'll see you in Ohio soon.
Appliance Factory and Mattress Kingdom has products in stock and available to take home today. With 5 stores and almost 40 years in business, they are Ohio's appliance experts, and they help you to get the right product at the right price with a huge inventory. You can save 30 to 60% every day on everything from Bosch and Viking to LG, GE, and KitchenAid at unbeatable savings and in stock. Plus, Mattress Kingdom inside Appliance Factory has everything from Tempur-Pedic and Sealy, Stearns & Foster, and Dream Cloud mattresses in stock. Stop by any one of Appliance Factory and Mattress Kingdom's 5 Ohio locations today or visit online at appliancefactory.com.
Good morning, Dreamhouse Nation. James Lewis of TDH joining us today from Big Cat Rescue. It's Howard Baskin. Howard, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So we've had Carol on before, so most of our listeners already know what Big Cat Rescue is. But for the couple that don't, what is Big Cat Rescue?
Well, Carol is a very hard act to follow. But Big Cat Rescue is a sanctuary devoted exclusively to big cats, and by that we mean everything from bobcats and servals, the smaller exotic cats, to tigers. And the best way, when people say, "Well, how do you know it's a sanctuary?" The best way, in my mind, to define sanctuary is because there are places that we call pseudo sanctuaries that are really roadside zoos that may have sanctuary in their name. And if a place does not do any of what I call the 5 sins, then it qualifies as a sanctuary. And those sins are buy cats, sell cats, breed cats, take them off site for exhibition, or let people touch them. And if you don't do those things and give good animal care, then you're a sanctuary. But the best way for people to determine if a place that they're looking at is a good sanctuary is to look at the website of the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries, which is pretty much the gold standard for sanctuaries and has very high standards of care.
Exactly. So it sounds like a sanctuary really cares about the animals and is looking into their best interest, where some of the other organizations might not be. They might be looking more for financial profit.
Exactly.
So what is the mission of Big Cat Rescue?
We define our mission in 3 parts. One is to give the best care we can of the animals, and that's always our absolute first concern. The second is what we call advocacy, or stopping the abuse of big cats, and we are very much a leader in that. And the third is trying to stop extinction of big cats in the wild, and one of the ways we do that, it's almost a little bit like the notion of tithing. We take about $100,000 of our revenue each year and donate it to projects which are called in situ projects out in the wild, with people who are working to try to save the big cats from extinction. And often those projects are things like, a big issue in the wild is the human-predator conflict, when predators come and take chickens or goats that the local people rely on for their living. And so by helping them do things like build what are called predator-proof chicken housing, or bomas, they call them, around cattle or goats, we can reduce the retaliatory killings that happen after the predators take animals.
Oh, wow. So you're not just helping the big cats here in the States, you're helping them around the world.
Correct. And the other way we're helping them around the world that is not as obvious is that the fact that we have had a situation in this country up until the passing of the Big Cat Public Safety Act, which I'm thinking we'll talk about a little later, is that because we didn't even know where our big cats were in this country to know whether they're being used in the illegal international trade. When our State Department or Fish and Wildlife Service would go to these international conferences trying to protect the tiger, trying to stop countries who want to legalize selling tiger parts or what are called tiger derivatives, like alleged medicines made from tiger parts, our credibility was impaired because those countries would say, "Hey, you guys don't even know where your tigers are to know if they're going into the international trade. You're hypocrites." So now, with the passing of this bill, they will no longer be able to say that.
That is awesome how you guys have been able to reach out and change the policies and procedures and to really help the animals.
Well, it's been very satisfying, and the passage of that bill, and Carol was working on federal legislation way back in the late 90s and passed a partial bill in 2003, but the effort on this particular bill began in the middle of 2011. So it's been over a decade of enormous work and enormous money spent to get this passed. But it really is what we personally kind of view as our life's legacy.
Nice. So basically, we're talking about the Big Cat Public Safety Act. Is that correct?
Correct.
Excellent. And then, unfortunately, I understand that some people recently violated it during the Super Bowl. Is that correct?
Well, if they had filmed that commercial where Joel McHale was holding a fairly good-sized but very young cougar, that would have violated the law, because the way the law stops the cub petting is to require that the public be at least 15 feet from the animal if the animal is not behind a permanent barrier. In other words, in its enclosure, like at a zoo or at a sanctuary. And Joel McHale is a member of the public. He would not qualify for any of the exceptions. The one reason that this commercial filming did not violate the Big Cat Public Safety Act is they filmed it in Vancouver, Canada. So, of course, our law doesn't apply there. And we don't know when they filmed it. They might have filmed it before December 20th when the bill was signed into law. But if that commercial were filmed today in this country, it would be a violation of the law and subject to a $20,000 fine and up to 5 years in jail.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was going to say the $20,000 fine, not so bad. I mean, because they're a big company. But, if the actor all of a sudden had to go to jail for 5 years, wow, that would definitely change some things real quick.
Yeah, the bill has teeth, and the person who would be most at risk would be whoever supplied that animal to them. And these places that supply animals to, I mean, there's very little supplying of animals to Hollywood anymore because CGI, fortunately, has really taken over that portion of what used to be supplying live animals. But the person who supplied it, who would be, quote, an exhibitor if they were in the U.S. and have a USDA license to do that, would be at risk. It's also $20,000 per violation.
Oh, wow.
So if you're a place that, for instance, starts offering cub petting and you can document 5 violations, 5 different people coming and petting the cat, well, now you're talking about a $100,000 fine. So it adds up.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. How were you able to get the bill passed?
That would be a much longer story than this interview, but it was a combination of grassroots work where we had supporters around the country literally making tens of thousands of emails and phone calls to Congress over the decade. And we ended up hiring lobbyists. A 501c3 nonprofit can spend a portion of its annual budget on lobbyists. And we ended up with some very, very good lobbyists. And one of them included the lobbyist who represents the National Sheriff's Association, who supported the bill. So a big part of supporting the bill was getting law enforcement endorsements to protect first responders. And there are many incidents where first responders show up for some other reason, not knowing that somebody has a tiger in their backyard or a cougar. So, and they're not trained to deal with that. And of course, you have the famous, unfortunate incident in Zanesville back in 2011, where this fellow who had 56 big cats and dangerous bears and primates just let them all loose and killed himself. And suddenly the sheriff and deputies there ended up having to shoot most of these cats, which was horrible for the animals and horrible for these law enforcement people, some of whom suffered PTSD for an extended time after.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like this bill has been long needed.
We certainly think so, but the good news is we have it now.
What are some of the wrong messages that were sent during that Super Bowl commercial for animal control?
Well, when you see Joel holding this cougar, and people don't necessarily realize how young it is, when these cats are infants, they're reasonably manageable. But as they grow up, they quickly become dangerous. They don't make good pets. But when you see him doing that, And, oh boy, that looks like fun. I want one of those. And the same thing happens when we used to see Jack Hanna or Dave Salmoni or Boone Smith, the new generation of Jack Hannas who followed in his footsteps on the late night talk shows, bringing tiger cubs. The message that it sends, look, they can stand there and say, oh, but you shouldn't have these as pets, they get dangerous. Well, to me, that's somewhat like someone standing there smoking a cigarette saying, by the way, you shouldn't smoke, it's dangerous. The real message is you shouldn't have one of these unless you're special like me, like Jack Hanna. And we all want to be special. And so this motivated people to go out and buy particularly these cast-offs from the cub petting trade, thinking, being lied to and told, oh, if you get the cat when it's young, it'll bond to you and it'll be safe, which is absolute nonsense. And then when these animals become even a few months old and become dangerous, they end up in miserable conditions in backyards or basements or crazy situations like the guy in Harlem who had a tiger and a alligator in his apartment.
Wow, that is outrageous that things like that have happened. And fortunately, with this new act passing, hopefully that will eliminate or at least cut down on a lot of those issues.
Well, it should. For one thing, it stops the incentive. These exhibitors who offered the cub petting had to have a constant supply of cubs because you can only use a tiger cub for a couple months before it comes too dangerous. And so they would have 50 or 100 tigers constantly breeding and pumping out cubs, both for their use and to supply the smaller roadside zoos. And then these animals end up in backyards. Well, without the cub petting trade, there's no incentive for them to do that kind of breeding. In fact, it would be stupid because you just have more mouths to feed that are very expensive. So that's a big way in which it will cut down the mistreatment of both the cubs and how the animals end up.
Well, our listeners want to help out. They want to donate, and they also want to let Fox and Disney know that those types of things aren't okay. How can they donate, and then how can they reach out to those type of big businesses and say, hey, stop doing this?
It would be great if they did both, and it's very simple. Disney owns Fox Entertainment, and so we were able to identify two executives at Disney who we believe are decision makers for this kind of thing. And so if you go to catlaws.com, very simple, catlaws.com, you will see a opportunity there to send a message to those people in a very simple way that only takes you a minute or two. It's always best if you customize the message because, what they view as a form tends not to be as meaningful as if someone took the time to customize it. But regardless, it lets you very easily send a message to them. And we always encourage people, look, it doesn't, to not be nasty, but to let them know that this is something that you find objectionable, it's not right, and urge them to come around to that way of thinking. And then if you would like to donate to help us care for the animals and fund these projects in the wild, if you go to bigcatrescue.org, up at the top, there's a donate button, and there are a whole bunch of choices of how you can donate.
Now, I know a lot of people that like the New York Times, but I understand there is a different type of magazine that's just as good, the Big Cat Times. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm flattered that you consider it just as good. It does get very good reviews. It doesn't quite have the readership of the Big Cat, of the New York Times. But we send that in a paper version to all of our donors, and we will send it in a digital version to anyone. So if you're a donor of $100 or more, you automatically get on that list. And if not, you can just send us an email with your email address, and we will put you on the digital version list. And that discusses everything from what's happening at the sanctuary, cats arriving, cats passing away, medical procedures on the cats, various other activities at the sanctuary. And it used to have updates on the federal bill. Now it will have updates on enforcement of the federal bill. And and then some other topics of interest that are related to the cats.
Oh, sounds like an interesting read, and it sounds like, shoot, all they have to do is just send you an email and they can subscribe. I mean, obviously the better way would be to get the paper copy by, donating $100 or more and becoming on the list permanently. But yeah, shoot, with just a simple thing as an email, they can get the digital copy. It sounds great.
Yeah, and there's no charge for that. We're happy to have people want to read it.
And then, of course, it's time for the hard-hitting questions. How can I get you and Carol to sing 50 Cent in the club for my birthday? Because apparently that's a thing.
Well, there is this service called Cameo that you can go to and select celebrities to make a couple-minute video of your choice. You just give them parameters, and it can be for a birthday or a wedding or engagement or things like that. And Carol has been quite popular on there. Some time back, as a result of one request, we both sang that. The requests from that have died out, I think, largely because people couldn't tolerate my singing.
I was going to say it looked like a fun video. That's the important thing.
Well, you may recall I sang a line or two in Tiger King, and I think that pretty much was the culmination of my singing career.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to say I did that once at a Harlem Globetrotters game. They had where you could sing to win a prize, and I attempted that, and I didn't have much success either. So, how did you and Carol meet?
We actually met at a animal related function at the aquarium, and through an odd set of circumstances that's too long for here, we both arrived a half hour early, and so we met walking up this ramp in the aquarium, got to this room, and along the way, as we walked, we introduced ourselves, and we got to the room, and the room was empty. It had a nice little buffet and a bartender across the way. And so I said to Carol, well, maybe the speech is in a different room, and then we come here. Let me ask the bartender. And I went to the bartender, and he said, well, it doesn't start for a half hour. So I came back to Carol, and I was just in kind of a flippant mood, and I looked at her with a straight face, and I said, the woman who had organized this was a woman named Mary, who we both know. And I said, it turns out there's no function. And she looked at me confused and said, well, what do you mean? I said, it turned out the whole thing was something that a sham that Mary set up just so you and I would meet.
Oh, that's so cute.
So that was the beginning, and the rest is history.
Oh, that is awesome. I'm glad to hear it's worked out for you. And we love stories like that, where people, with the common interest fall in love and have great relationships like that. That's awesome.
Well, thank you.
So where on social media, where on the web, where can we find out more about Big Cat Rescue?
Simply bigcatrescue.org.
Awesome. It's always important to get that last part right, because I've tried different websites where I put .com, and it was completely not the thing I thought it was going to be.
We certainly have experienced that.
So, Howard, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for joining us today.
Truly my pleasure. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Appliance Factory in Mattress Kingdom has products in stock and available to take home today. With 5 stores and almost 40 years in business, they are Ohio's appliance experts, and they help you to get the right product at the right price with a huge inventory. You can save 30 to 60% every day on everything from Bosch and Viking to LG, GE, and KitchenAid at unbeatable savings and in stock. Plus, Mattress Kingdom inside Appliance Factory has everything from Tempur-Pedic and Sealy, Stearns & Foster, and DreamCloud mattresses in stock. Stop by any one of Appliance Factory and Mattress Kingdom's 5 Ohio locations today, or visit online at appliancefactory.com.
Good morning, Dreamhouse Nation. James Lewis of TDH. Joining us today is Doug Ward from Odd Wizard Creations. Doug, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
When did you fall in love with art?
That's a complicated question. I'm in my 50s, so relevant to what I'm doing now, probably about 10 years ago. My wife is a photographer, and she's an art photographer. She sees things through just an amazing vision. She does a lot of cemetery pictures, a lot of unusual pieces. And driving down the road, constantly hearing, stop, and having to pull over for her to take a picture of a tree and all these things. She eventually started showing me what she was seeing. And that changed my vision of the world, literally. And that's when I fell back into creating things. Initially, back in the 1980s, I was down at the beach in Panama City, which is where we go here. I'm in Alabama, so we go down to the beach in PC when we're young. It's just what you do. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of airbrush artists down there. And I saw them just creating things, just seemed like magic almost instantly, right? Quickly and easily. And they just here and they made it look so simple. It's highly sophisticated. They made it look really easy. So I took an interest in that. And I came home one day and I bought me an airbrush and played around. And guess what? I could do a few things. And then later on, I got interested in painting motorcycles. So the airbrush was a great tool for that, for doing portrait art and things like that. So I got to play with that. And it was a good time. But I got out of it for years until, again, going down the road with my wife so often and having her stop for me to see something like she saw it.
Neat. So it's definitely a family thing with the two of you, both having your own art styles, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Hers is a lot more sophisticated than mine. And for me, I really consider myself more a craftsman than an artist.
I was going to say, it's probably hard to get wall space between the two of you.
I've got my own office, and I keep my stuff in there, and the rest of the house is hers. Nice.
And then where did you get your art training? Is it just, you've kind of learned as you've went, or did you have any official training?
Basically, an airbrush in the back of a band room or a motorcycle shop, playing around with that. But again, right, the process I use for creation, to me, is more craft work than art because it's mixed media, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But the way that I learned how to see and how to create was just doing it, seeing something I wanted to make happen and making it happen, and admittedly, a whole lot of books on airbrushing motorcycles.
So what is Odd Wizards Creations?
A lot of things, but the main thing that we actually end up doing is creating artwork for people and their pets. We create things for memorials sometimes, or for people who just love their animals. And that started because I have my own little furry buddy named Wookie, who's a snoodle. And I got to playing around wanting something to create him. If you've been on the site, you'll notice that there's a strange-looking little white dog with a steampunk-looking top hat.
Yeah, that's a cute one. Yeah.
That's Wookie. That's my little guy. And so that was the first one I ever did.
Oh, that is so cool.
And it sort of took off from there. We've got my brother-in-law does 3D printing, and he does like lithotypes for me and all kinds of different things from the stuff that I create. So it's one of those things where it just keeps growing and growing and growing.
That's awesome. So it just started out with the creative portraits, and then now you're doing a wide variety of things.
Exactly. And now, to be clear, like I say, a lot of this is craft work. It's not really art. Art creates emotion. Art is something that you look at and make people think, right? My wife makes art. I do a craft, and that craft is really creating really cute and meaningful pictures of animals.
I was going to say, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. I mean, gosh, I can imagine the emotions that your clients have when they see their pet humanized.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. And it's also one of those things where we have a lot of people, especially for older folks, who do a surprise for the significant other that loves a particular pet or animal or something like that. And that's a feel-good kind of thing there.
Definitely. So what is the process for creating your craft?
Okay. This is where it gets highly sophisticated, so to speak, because remember, I've been around since the 1980s, and I started doing this with airbrush, and I moved over to a digital medium. So there's a combination of a lot of things. The final result of this is the pet ends up being airbrushed digitally over everything. But first I'll get a picture in, and then for the backgrounds, I've generally already done digital creations for most of the backgrounds for this. I've gone in and I've created, because there's a certain amount of styles that I'm going to want to get. I've seen this done before people just using Photoshop to put a pet's picture on a body. And to me, it just never looks cool. It never worked. So there's certain things that people are generally going to want. Now, I get surprised sometimes, but most people are going to want a fantasy scene or something along those lines. And just when I have spare time, I go in and I create something like that to use for a background. It'll go for one specific pet for that. So I've already got my backgrounds made up for most of the stuff and ready to go. And when it comes in, I'll either, depending on the pet and what they want, I'll either go in and do an airbrush render of it, or for some, we do use some AI. But the AI ends up being just a base of what we're going to create, because I don't think AI is to the point right now where it can really do what we do. You can make a pet, but you can't make Jim Brown's poodle from Western Oregon. You know, it's one of those things where when we do use things like that, we go over it with the airbrush and create and build. So there's a lot to it, and it depends on what somebody wants. I mean, if it's an anime thing or a manga that somebody wants, it's going to be sketched up and then an airbrush done. And if it's something that people want, like a 3D render or something like that, then it's going to be more digital artwork, computerized. So the process, basically, I'm agnostic to the process. The matter is what gets the end result and what creates something beautiful for people at a reasonable price.
Wow, that is awesome. Yeah, speaking of reasonable price, I mean, gosh, $30? I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. Usually when someone has something custom made, it's hundreds of dollars, but you're able to keep the price so affordable that it sounds like, gosh, all of our listeners should sign up.
Yeah, and the reason for that is twofold. Reason number one is, like I say, we do prep work. We have everything ready to go. So it lets us get things a little bit faster, too, even though we get overwhelmed sometimes. Last week, we got way behind and had a server crash because we had a whole lot of orders coming in. But now things are starting to get back to normal. But one of the things is that sometimes when somebody wants something simple, I can do this in 30 minutes. But sometimes I'll get something like I've got one client right now, and she had a dog that was rescued from being a bait animal somewhere in Wisconsin. She's moved down to Texas, and she loves this guy. His name's Sarge. Well, Sarge is basically a bloodhound, and she wants Sarge with his particular orange collar, and with she wants a military uniform and shells, and she has very specific, precise instructions as to what she wants. That one will take me a good bit longer. It'll take a day or two to get done. But it evens out because I have some that I can do quickly and easily, and some take a little bit longer. So it's one of those things where I enjoy doing it, and it's not my only project, not my only thing. So I'll take a little longer when I need to, and the ones that can be done quickly and easily and make someone happy quickly, we'll do it that way.
Exactly. So it sounds like it's all custom and it's all based on the individual's needs, which is awesome.
And one of the things is as long as people are working with me and telling me what they want, it makes it a lot easier. I do revisions all the time. I don't charge for those. I want to make sure that when my clients get something, they're 100% happy with what they get.
Nice. So what is the best way for the Dream House Nation to contact you?
The easy way to find me is on Facebook at Auto Wizard Creations. And that's our little Facebook page. I've also got our www.autowizardcreations.shop. I'm also, I don't use it very often, but I have a spot on Fiverr, a spot on Etsy that I just put up. Haven't really done much on either one of those yet, but I know it's coming.
I can imagine that during the holidays you have a surge in requests, like a Valentine's Day or Christmas, or just different times of the year. What are those ones that seem to be your peak times? Oddly,
most of the ones that we get for gifts are for birthdays. So it can be random. And we have some weeks where I'm totally swamped and some weeks where it's just a lull. I run Facebook ads for these things, but I've had to turn off ads 2 or 3 times just to get caught up. So, there's no real pattern. It can just be out of the blue, someone wants this or has seen it, or if a pet passes away, which I hate to hear those, but I love being able to get something for somebody they like. I've got one regular customer out in California, and she had a cat pass away a while back, and I did her one of it, crossed over the Rainbow Bridge with angel wings, which I thought was just beautiful. But I hear these stories. I love animals, right? And I love people who love animals. This is one of the things that I really like about doing this full project. So most of the people I'm talking with have a real big heart, and they really care about animals and consequently people. I learned very young in life that you can tell a lot about people from 3 things: how they treat people in the service industry, how they treat animals, and how they treat children. So people that want this are generally people that love animals and treat them well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I was going to say just that bond that you have between your pets. I mean, how they become family.
Exactly. And, you know, for me, I've got two pets. I've got a cat named Hawkins that is about 15 years old. And he just randomly showed up in my toolbox at work one day, and I brought him home. And he's been with me ever since. And then Wookie, who I've had for about 4 years now, and that is just literally, other than my wife and daughter, my best friend in the world. You know, he's with me all the time and hangs out. And the love of a pet and the love that you can feel with that and the bond you create is something special. And I love being able to have people look at these and just be happy because they can capture the inner vision they have of what that represents to them.
That is awesome. I mean, it's just great how places like you, and then my other favorite one is Cuddle Clones, and you all should partner up with them and have like a package thing, because Cuddle Clones can take pictures of your pet and turn them into stuffed animals.
That's really cool.
It is. It's really neat. It's in like Louisville or Lexington, Kentucky. And yeah, like you get a stuffed animal and it looks spot on to your animal. It is just so neat. And they can do all kinds. I mean, at first I thought it was just cats and dogs, but they do horses and you name it, they do them.
You know, that's a funny thing is horses. I have done, of course, cats and dogs, but I've done horses and pigs and goats and a ferret or two. And I had my client out in Cali that I was talking about. She actually had me do a picture of one of her friends, you know. So you never know what you're going to get. Mostly dogs, a few cats, but people love their horses, their goats, their ferrets, all those things. And you never know. What's coming in.
I know what you mean. One of my favorite pets we had ducks for a while, and we raised them in our guest bathroom, and we'd take them for walks, and they would follow us around because they imprinted on us. Oh my gosh. They were great. I mean, it just, everybody's different on what type of things, that connection that you have.
I had a duck and a pig once at the same time.
Oh, cool.
Now, the pig was named Bacon, right? But here's the story behind the pig. I used to work out on the road, and my wife and daughter tell me, okay, we want to get a pet pig. I'm like, we don't have room for a pig. They go, no, it's a miniature pot-bellied pig. He's going to be real small. And after a couple of days negotiating, I agree, okay, well, yeah, fine. They bring Bacon home. Of course, fall in love with the first year. He gets to that size of a dog, and 3 years later, I've got a 300-pound pig that's an indoor pet that housebroken, goes outside and everything, but is used to sleeping inside and staying with my daughter, right? So we end up later on, we're at a flea market, and my wife, being the person she is, sees a guy with a bunch of ducks, right? And she goes over and says something about the ducks being pets, and he goes, no, these ducks aren't for pets. These ducks are for dinner. So the next thing I know, I've got a duck in a sack in the back of my car, making an hour and a half drive back to the house, trying to keep it from going nuts. And I have a pet duck we named Fred. Fred imprinted on the Bacon, and they followed each other around everywhere.
Oh.
Right? They both passed a few years back, but they were best buddies.
That is so cool. Well, Doug, it has been a pleasure having you on the show today, talking up Odd Wizard Creations. Before we let you go, we're on social media, we're on the web. Where can we find out more about you?
Again, Odd Wizard Creations on Facebook. On the web itself, oddwizardcreations.shop. And I actually have, if everybody likes weird and unusual T-shirts, I've got a little Redbubble thing on there. It's under Bob Roberts as a brand name. So I'd love to hear from everybody. If you just want to talk pets, you don't have to make an order. You got questions, hit me up. I'm pretty friendly and pretty happy to hear from anybody that has any thoughts or ideas.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Appliance Factory and Mattress Kingdom has products in stock and available to take home today. With 5 stores and almost 40 years in business, they are Ohio's appliance experts, and they help you to get the right product at the right price with a huge inventory. You can save 30 to 60% every day on everything from Bosch and Viking to LG, GE, and KitchenAid at unbeatable savings and in stock. Plus, Mattress Kingdom inside Appliance Factory has everything from Tempur-Pedic and Sealy, Stearns & Foster, and DreamCloud mattresses in stock. Stop by any one of Appliance Factory and Mattress Kingdom's 5 Ohio locations today, or visit online at appliancefactory.com.
Thank you for tuning in to this Dream House, brought to you by Appliance Factory and Mattress Kingdom. We look forward to seeing you again next week.